This is a Logo Experiments demo. And what we're going to start off by doing is opening Photoshop. Now you can go to Applications and open Photoshop, or if it's in your toolbar, you can click here. Before you click, I'd like everybody to hold Command, Option, Control, Shift, and open. And if you're on a PC, you hit Control, Alt, Shift. And when it pops up and says delete the Adobe Photoshop settings file, you want to say yes. Once we get to our home page, I'd like for you to go to Create New. We're going to create a new document, and I'd like to set it at a print document, and we are going to make it a letter, and we're going to make it horizontal. After we make it horizontal, just make sure it's 300 resolution. We're going to have a white background, and we're going to hit Create. Once we have our document, I'd like for us to go to our window up at the top and set up our work area. I'd like for us to set up our workspace as photography first. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our photo from our desktop and we're going to place it into Photoshop. We can either just drag and drop it, like so. And if you want to open it a different way, I can throw this in the trash can. So we can go to File, Place Embedded, which means that it will be in the file. And we'll go to On My Computer, and I'm going to my desktop. I'd like to find my KindMind experiments. So the next step I'd like for us to do is I'd like for us to convert our image to black and white. We're going to go to Image up at the top and go to Mode, Grayscale, and it will ask us to flatten the image. I'd like for us to keep our layer. So I'm going to say, Don't Flatten Image. It's going to ask to rasterize the image, and you're going to say yes, rasterize. It's going to say discard color information. That's okay. And once we have our color information gone, we can see that this is now a black and white image. Now I took this one a black background so that it would accentuate these lighter lemon and lime forms. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to go to our levels. Now you can always go to the layer adjustments here at the bottom, and you can add a layer, and we could add levels there. Now, the first thing that we're going to do on our levels layer is that we're going to select our black eyedropper tool, and we're going to make that background dark. Now, the last thing I'd like for you guys to do is kind of use your sliding bars and make this as high contrasty as possible. Now, you can make it very extreme where it's like really isolated out, but for the case of this, we can leave it like this. So we can recognize that there are these citrusy forms. And then I go, okay. Just move it over to the side. And then what I'd like for us to do is, I'd like for us to merge these layers. Now before we merge, I want to crop down my KindMind to be 8.5 by 11. Now if we want to crop, if we get our crop tool here, I still want it to be 8.5 by 11 and 300 ppi. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our height and width. So we're going to set our width first at 11 inches. You have to hit inches. To here, we can go to the height being 8.5. And then we want our resolution to be pixels per inch, 300. And we go, okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to constrain these proportions so that when we have our document, that they're still on this document. I'm going to still cut it with that background being there. Okay, crop. So I still have these layers here. What I want to do first is I want to merge these two layers. Now you can hold your Shift key and click on both of these layers. What we can do now is go to the options off to the side and select Merge Layers. So we'll merge those layers so the effects that we set on here will be there. Now, the next step I want to do is I want to make all of this image, the rest of it, black. Now there's several ways we can do this. Obviously we could just use our brush tool. So just grab your brush. Now you can make it big just by hitting your bracket tool, your right bracket tool. And I'm just going to make my brush really big. You can also change it up here. I don't want my brush to be soft, so I'm going to make it a hard brush. And it's set at black. And if I hold my Shift key, I can just go right across. And at the bottom, I can hold my Shift key and go right across. And you can make it a little smaller, kind of get some of these little shapes out. And that would be the final version of this. Now, again, you can make multiple versions of it. And I'd like for us to save this as a JPEG so that we can place it into Illustrator. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to save as to our desktop, save on your computer as a JPEG. And it's going to tell you that it's getting rid of your layers, which is okay, because we don't need these layers for anything unless you want to alter this PSD in another way. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to title it Kind Mind 1, and we go save. And because it's black and white, it's not going to be a big file. So I'm going to make it a large file, and I'm going to hit OK. So now that we're done with that, we can get out of Photoshop. I'm going to exit. And I'm not going to save this because I've already saved a JPEG version, unless you want to keep your PSD with your layers, etc. I don't need to. So don't save. And we're going to X out of Photoshop. And I'm going to quit Photoshop. Next thing I'd like for us to do is open Illustrator. I'd like for us to hold down our Command Option, Control-Shift if you're on a Mac, and open it. And if you're on a PC, hit Control-Alt-Shift. Once we have it open, I'd like for us to make a new document, a new print document. So I'm going to hit Create New. I'm going to hit Print, and we're going to make this inches off to the side here. And we are going to set it to 8.5 by 11, except I'm going to make myself have 3 artboards. And I'm going to create it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my photo into my Illustrator document for my word experiments. I'm going to go to Place. You can also hit Command-Shift-P, and I'm going to find my black and white. Hit Kind Mind, and I'll drag it out, and I can save it right there. Now, I probably want to have 2 of these, 2 to 3, so I'm going to make space for my second one. Next thing I'd like for us to do is to place our second one. I didn't convert my photograph in Photoshop to black and white image for my second experiment. So what I'm going to do in Illustrator is convert it to a vector by doing image trace. So next I'm going to do is hit Command-Shift-P. I'm going to place my kind here. I'm going to place it right below. And this one I'm going to image trace. So if I go to my window up at the top, and I go to my workspace, and instead of being in Essentials, I want to be in Painting. And once we're in our painting setting, you'll notice that all of these tools, once I've selected the photograph, that I get all of these tools at the top. It asks me if I want to image trace it, and I am. I'm going to image trace it. It's going to say tracings may proceed slow because it's a big image. I'm going to go, OK. Notice it traces the image. Now, it might not be exactly what you want it to look like. So what we're going to do next is we're going to kind of change or alter the live trace. Now, you can go up to the left side here, up at the top toolbar, and grab the image trace panel. And what we can do is if we click on that, we can make it less or more. So we can make it more clear or less clear, depending on the way we pull that threshold bar. I think that looks pretty good. I'm still seeing a little bit of that shadow there, but I can use my eraser tool or I can adjust it. Now, you can obviously do a couple of these, and that's okay. So maybe I want my K to be really clean. Now I notice these other letters are starting to get light, so you might want to do 2 separate ones for this one. Maybe I'll go ahead and do that. So let me go make this bolder so I can get my other letter forms in there. Those look great. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command-Shift-P and grab my K in another format. Command-Shift-P. I'm going to grab my kind again, place it. I'm going to place it over here. I'm going to place it over here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to image trace. Okay. Except this time the K is going to be a lot lighter so I can see more of it. All right. And I'm going to drag this over here so you guys can see that. And I'm going to adjust my threshold here and make it much lighter so I can see that K a little better. Oh, that looks much better. All right, so once that's done, what we can do is we can go to expand. What it does is it makes a drawing, or it puts paths around all of the photographic images. So the photograph becomes a vector file, much like the letter forms. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go grab our direct selection tool, and we're going to start picking this apart because this has layers. And I'm going to just hit my delete key on my keyboard, and I'm going to start deleting parts that I don't want. For example, these are too light for me. Notice these are darker. So I'm going to get rid of these letter forms. And I'm just going to keep my darker ones over here. Then I'm going to go to this one over here, and I'm going to hit expand up at the top. I'm going to take my white arrow key and get rid of all of these areas that I don't want. Select. And in this case, I don't want this K. And what I'm going to do is take my K over here, and I'm going to drag it over here. And this is my version of kind, mind at the bottom, except I didn't do the mind. But you guys see how we're going with this. Now you're more than welcome to take your black and white image, your photograph. You don't have to alter it. You don't have to turn it into vectors. You don't have to use image trace. But if it's something that you enjoy, you can try it. So I'm going to try it with this one. I'm going to hit image trace. I'm going to hit OK. And I like how this one kind of gets vectorized. Now I can get more detail of the citrus fruit on the inside, or I can knock it out, which I kind of prefer. I like this kind of interesting shapes that were made with the fruit. All right. And I could expand that as well. And that is a finished version. The next step we're going to do is we're going to work on the second panel, and we're going to try to figure out the typefaces that fit the brief as best as possible. KindMind being a facial scrub that's local, organic, and animal friendly. And so what we're going to do is we're going to type out the typefaces in the list on the project handout, and we're going to try to see which typefaces we like best. So what I'd like to do is type KindMind, and I'm just going to hit Command-Shift-A, and I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Command and Option. Or you can just copy and paste it. And so, I'm going to make some of these, I'm going to make them, and I'm going to duplicate it because we have to have one in serif and one in sans serif. And I'm going to make these all big. So probably about 72 points. That sounds good. And we're going to just kind of separate them. Now I'd like for you guys to have a play with the weight and stroke of each typeface. Now I haven't put the typefaces in that I've chosen for you in this project, but that's something that we're going to experiment with right here. I think 6 is fine. And I'll do a few on this side too. All right. Now you're more than welcome to align this in, more accurately than I'm aligning it. You can use your align tool to kind of, I could grab all of these, and then once I get my align tool at the top, I can center them, etc. And I could do that over here as well, center them. And then I can evenly distribute them. So if I wanted to distribute them, I could, distribute them out up here. So, that's kind of what I would do to make them as clean as possible. Now, I don't like them all being, in title case. I might make them some in all uppercase. So I might select this one. I'm gonna hold my shift key down. And I'm going to maybe grab this one, and I'm going to change in type. I'm going to change case to all uppercase. And maybe I'll choose one in all lowercase. And maybe I'll do a couple of different versions over here. Maybe I'll do hold shift key down, and I'll just maybe make 2 of these. Uppercase, so go to type, change case, all lowercase. So I have a variety. Ooh, I didn't get that. So I hold my shift key down and I grab 2, and then I go to type and change case, and I'll make 2 lowercase. So I have a variety here. I noticed that when I pulled that over. All right, so the last step here is that we're gonna experiment with what typefaces we want. Now, we aren't in our typography setting. We're in painting right now. I don't know if you guys remembered that. In my painting setting here. So let's go to our typography setting. Up on this right corner, we can go to typography. And I'd like for us to change the typeface. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of my type, and I'm going to find Futuro on here. Now I have all these different varieties of Futura. I'd like to start with medium first. And once we find our medium, then I can choose from the list below, okay? So I have already done this, so I know that I want Futura and Baskerville. I'd like for you guys to go through each typeface and figure out what you want as your final version for this logo. So I'm gonna leave one regular. I'm gonna change one to medium oblique. I'm gonna change one to heavy oblique. I'm going to change one to light condensed. I'm going to change this one to medium condensed. I'm going to make this one, let's see here. That looks good. So we have quite a variety. Now you can choose italic just to see what it is. It doesn't need to be italic, so it could be something like that. And so we want to try our serif typeface next. I'm going to select all of my type, and I'm going to choose my serif typeface, and I chose Baskerville. And I'm going to just choose the regular Baskerville, but then I'm going to go inside and change the typeface. Now I'm noticing that my point size is too large. I'm going to go change that really quickly. Let's do it at 60. And then I'll do this one at 60 as well. That way it fits on the canvas. All right. So once I have my Baskerville, then I can choose, if I want it to be regular, or if I want it to be semi-bold, or if I want it to be italic, or just regular or bold. So this way that you get an idea of what your typeface is going to look like. Notice the varieties in each typeface. I'm going to just do regular on this one. And then on this one, I'm going to go to semi-bold italic. So it kind of gives us an idea of the variety of typefaces we have here. And so I'd like for you guys, before you finish these, I want you to label them. On this one, I'm going to have you label it Futura. And we will do it in Futura, Select that and do it in Futura. And I'm going to choose medium. And I'd like for you guys to make a label for it. So I'd like for it to be a little bit smaller, something like 20 points. And you can, if you think it looks better italic, you can make it italic. I just want you to label it. so we know which typeface we're looking at when we have critique. And for this one, I'm just going to select this, move this over, and then I'm going to type in Baskerville. And I'm going to use my Baskerville typeface for this one. And we can make it italic. And we can make it italic. These are my final typefaces, and this is what I'd go through to figure out what typefaces I'm going to use for my final logo. All right, the next step I'd like for us to do is I'd like for us to place our sketches. Now, after you read the brief and you come up with some ideas for your 10 logo thumbnails, I'd like for you to place it in this final document. Again, we can hit Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P if you're on a PC, or we can just hit place, and I'm going to grab my illustrations or my thumbnails, and I'm going to drag them and drop them onto this document. And we can use our black arrow key or our V and put it right there. And so this is what your document should look like for critique next week. All right. Good luck, everybody. I look forward to seeing your results.